What about African American voters in Virginia? I have not looked at the polling breakdown. Did they come out in big numbers for McAuliffe?
I haven't seen the numbers of the demographics according to race, but Winsome Sears is a candidate, right? She's the first Black lieutenant governor in Virginia, and that's huge. That's historical. And the fact that the mainstream and left-leaning media don't want to touch that with a 10-foot pole, that's very significant.
You know, she's the one that has the gun, the picture of her holding the gun. So I
That's
think
right.
Winsome is kind of going against the tide there. Hispanic Americans, you cannot generalize about them, whereas you can with African Americans because their voting bloc is anywhere from 80 to 100% Democrat, depending on where they are. But Hispanics are much more, they have much more variety in their point of view. And so I'm not surprised that they, being very family oriented, again, generally speaking, really resented a gubernatorial candidate saying, hey, you know what? You don't have any say in public school and what these teachers put forth in the classroom. You button it. I mean, I don't think that played well in a Hispanic community.
No, and here's what I really think is going on. The Hispanic community, as you just pointed out, is big on family, but they're also big on faith. And if you look at Virginia and you look at what's been going on the last year, year and a half of the coronavirus clampdowns and the Democrats' weaponization of the coronavirus to continue clamping down on American freedoms, you're seeing a backlash from the evangelical, the faith-filled community, those in the church communities who are fed up with how the Democrat Party is running roughshod over religious rights, which are tied to the concept of God-given rights in America. So I think you're going to see that going forward in the
I'm not
next
sure about that,
2022
Cheryl.
elections.
I'm not sure that. You cross the Potomac River into Washington, D.C., which I think is 72% African American. They're not going to object to the mandates in that community there. They're solid Democrat progressives in Washington, D.C. There is a difference between the African American community in Washington and in rural Virginia. Not in Fairfax County, as we said, not in Richmond. But I think you're right. In the rural communities, is a much different point of view than the African Americans in the urban communities. Would I be saying there? Does that make sense?
Oh, there's definitely a difference. I was speaking not just simply of Black voters, I was speaking of voters in general in Virginia. And if you look at what's going on around the nation, and some of the sources I've spoken to whose jobs are to go to churches around the nation, to go to organizations around the nation and reignite the Christian base, you're seeing a lot more voters who are faith-based first entering the secular political scene, actually trying to run for public school board positions,
Right.
actually trying to
That would be
run for
great.
local seats.
That would be great if that happened all over the country.